Okay, hey, how are you today? This is Arthur, and this is News with Arthur. Topic is the 4 seasons in a week. Did I say that right?
No, 4 seasons in 4 weeks.
4 seasons in 4 weeks. and this is Suzanne, and she's going to introduce herself. Okay. Introduce yourself to your public and see what they have to say.
Yeah. Well, my name is Suzanne Mathis McQueen, and I'm an author. I'm a sacred feminist, is what I call myself.
Sacred feminist?
Yeah. And,
I like that.
Yeah. And workshop facilitator and all that stuff. 4 seasons in 4 weeks is a daily practice for women to look at their lunar rhythm, their monthly hormonal rhythm, to help them align with the 4 different energies. I focus on 4 distinct phases within this month that help women to really discover how to, once they're in alignment with these 4 energies, can really reach optimal peak performance in their decision making around health and business and sex and relationships and all that kind of stuff. Women are just really not taught anything really great about their cycle, and what we're really talking about is their hormonal cycle. What I'm talking about in here, even more than that, is this this rhythm that we have from the time we're born until the time we die as women, but surfaces during our reproductive years in the form of our cycle, to show us these 4 phases and to show us what our womb wisdom is really about. This is something that just we've never been taught as women. We've never really been taught stuff that's really good, where the wisdom lies and all that. And when for men, for male partners, when the men understand these 4 phases, it helps them to understand the rhythmic sex drive of the woman that they're with. So these 4 phases really align with universal rhythms, and we can get into that.
Wow, that's the whole thing with cycles with women. I've been married a couple of times, and I can actually feel their energy as a peak when they go into the moon. It's quite an interesting energy. It's not really, to me, it's not like a joyful energy, but it's like a buzz, and then it seems like the cycle ends, and then I feel happy around my partner.
Well, and so what you'll find is you're really talking about, you started out by talking about the 4th phase. Yeah, okay. And so what we've been taught is that, what all of society continues to talk about are certain times throughout this cycle, when really this is a full cycle. Mm-hmm. Every day matters, every day counts, every day is equal, except ovulation, which is sort of like the queen bee and the reason for the whole thing. But really we're talking about everything builds on each other. Each week builds on the next. Right. So this idea that we should only focus on the period or only focus on what we traditionally call PMS is really, really ridiculous. We look at the moon, and the moon isn't just one phase or another. It's constantly moving. Yeah. And women are lunar rhythmic. Again, because we've lived in a patriarchal society for so long, we've had to adapt to the male rhythm. Mm-hmm. And that's not natural for us. Men have a steadier burn. As women, we're construction zones, really. That's what it comes down to. We are, when we are in our cycling years, when we're in our reproductive years, we are building a uterine nest in order to prepare for a pregnancy. If no pregnancy happens, that uterine nest has to come back down and then and get purged, and then it starts all over again. That's it. That's really all that happens. And when you've got that kind of radical thing going on in a body, and the hormones are the thing that are activating those steps throughout, those hormones affect us differently. Those actions affect us differently. But it's super easy to understand. This is no mystery. The fact that women have not been taught this particular way of looking at it, and we can go through these 4 phases, but when we get finished, you'll see that it's kind of a crime in a way that we haven't been taught really how our bodies work.
Let me ask you about that question. Being taught, to me it seems like our forefathers have either weren't taught themselves or have lost that technique to teach, to tell the story and add it to a generation. Why is that? Why have they either they're not in the teaching that cycle? Why is that?
Well, first of all, when we're really talking about the grandmothers, the foremothers, our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, our great-great-grandmothers really haven't been tapped into what's good about this system. And it's really because, whether anyone wants to recognize it or not, but I think most people do at this point, is that the language and culture of the female has been oppressed for so long that we really lost, we really lost our,
lost your way.
Well, we lost our way because it's no different than the Native Americans or the Hawaiians, where basically they weren't allowed to speak their language anymore. Women were not allowed to speak their language anymore. We can point to so many times in history, and this has gone on for thousands of years, hundreds of years, but really in the United States, we can point to something like when this country was founded. Women didn't get the right to vote. They oftentimes, they may have owned land, but, that's maybe or maybe not, or maybe it would go to her husband, or, sort of depended on how that would happen. But the one thing she was in charge of was her body and her womb. Women were in charge of that. That domain was something that women were in charge of. And women taught each other. They had midwives who were really in charge of women's health, reproductive health. They had all of the oral tradition that was passed down in circles. Around the mid-1800s, the AMA came in. And the AMA, being male doctors, saw that the midwives were in charge of the female health. And they decided it was time to outlaw midwifery. And when midwifery was outlawed, that was really the final nail on the coffin for the women's power, because it was
and when was that?
About 1850 or something like that.
1850.
Somewhere in the mid 1800s. I'd have to look it up. I have it in the book, but
I think that's appalling.
Yeah.
That they would take that step.
That's right. But here's the thing. Here's what's more appalling. Is that once they outlawed midwifery, and once they, because see, what happens then is that when you disband these circles, when you disband this system, this culture of how you treat this, you isolate women. So now they're isolated in their own homes. They're not getting together for the same reasons. And they're being convinced that, when something's outlawed, then, you don't want to take that risk. And the only thing to do is to go to the male doctor. But the male doctors didn't have any knowledge of the female reproductive system. So in some places, they weren't even allowed to look at it, because then they'd lose their license. It's all really crazy. But there is documentation that women's cycles were seen as it was documented as a monthly act of willful negligence. Women were seen as hysterical. That's where the hysterectomy, term ultimately came from what I understand. And women were being a woman itself. Just being a woman was seen as a pathological condition. So can you imagine being a woman in the mid 1800s, having your source of what makes you female be criticized and degraded to such a point? And then have that power taken away. I mean, basically women had to cut their umbilical cord to their femininity, their core feminine power. And what they were left with was trying to adapt to a system that's not innate to women.
A male system.
A male system, yeah. But this has been going on for a really long time.
Right. Yeah. So, I was guided to put together a mandala, a medicine wheel, and I swept, and just unknowingly, but I swept 13 rings around this medicine wheel. And what I was told when I asked about that, this is a 13-month cycle. Now, I want to talk about 13-month cycles. How does a woman, does she go through maybe what I want to ask is, if we went back to the 13-month cycle.
Yeah.
How does
13-month year.
Yeah, 13-month year. How will that affect a woman in her cycle?
It'd be easier to track.
Okay.
It would be easier to check. Now, women are really different. I mean, they're all unique, but basically, for instance, in my book, what I do is I break down approximately 28 days. And because 28 days is kind of the average, it's the time that is calculated. It's easier to calculate that way. The period is a marker time when you can start counting. Ovulation is a marker point where you can calculate. So the 28 days is really sort of what's been figured out is kind of a regular cycle. But women can, what's regular for each woman could be 26 days or 33 days or something like that. So I want to say that each woman is unique. But let's take the 28 days. And if she were calculating that way and she had a 28-day cycle, then it would be pretty consistent and pretty easy to follow with a calendar like that.
Right,
rather than the way that it is now.
Yeah.
Women used to cycle with the moon and the light of the moon.
Right.
Women used to cycle with the light of the moon, but when artificial lighting came in, then that screwed up our signals a little bit. So then women started not cycling with the light of the moon as much.
That makes sense because one of my wives, she used to have the most regular. She would never know when she's gonna.
Yeah, when she's gonna start or when she's gonna whatever's happening.
And then it would be long.
Yeah.
So, is there a time span of length that a woman will be in her period, and how does that work?
Well, generally, because the hormonal landscape, and again, and what I want to say is I'm not an endocrinologist. I'm not a hormone doctor. The hormones were not my background when I got into this work. This is something that I discovered. This is a system that I discovered simply because I started tracking my cycle for reasons beyond fertility. I was just noticing some inconsistencies and I wanted to sort of get a handle on that. So I started tracking my physical energy, my mental viewpoint, my attitude, my sexual energy, all of those kinds of things. I started documenting all kinds of stuff, but I really didn't make that big of a deal of it. I had a business. I had a large business with about 30 other women that I worked with, and I was really busy. So I had children at home, the whole thing. So I didn't have a lot of time to really focus on this. But what happened is that I went home from work one day on a lunch break, and I was flipping through my day planner. This was in 1998 or so, and just looking over my notes while I'm eating a sandwich and all this kind of thing. And then it just came. I mean, the download happened. Boom, really enormously. So what I saw out loud, I remember saying, "Oh my God, my cycle looks just like the 4 seasons. It was fall, winter, spring, and summer." But bigger than that. Is that if you're familiar with how downloads can work, if you get them, and I've always kind of gotten them, but they're far and in between, not something that I can necessarily summon, But what happened, what I saw here was not only how it applied to me, but how big this was for the entire world, how this affected politics, how it affected cultures and societies. That we hadn't been taught just to break down this cycle into 4 weeks, 4 phases, and really understand that there are 4 energies. Now, there are a lot of women all over the world who are doing this kind of work. I mean, breaking it down into 4 phases, breaking it down into 3 phases, breaking it down into different configurations is not new. And so, I'm not the first one to come up with this. There's a lot of womb work going out there in the world. And so I encourage everyone to, read them all and tap into what resonates. But what came to me and what soon became evident that I needed to share this information, although I didn't end up starting to share it for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, what ended up happening is I saw these 4 phases, I saw what it meant, I knew exactly how it went. So right then and there, I started mapping it forward in my day planner. I thought, okay, well, let's see, what day am I on? I'm on day 17, so that means I'm in spring. Next week I'll be in summer, and then every day after that, I would wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm on day 21, and that means that I'm right at the edge of summer and spring, and I knew what that meant. I knew what that meant for my strengths. I knew what that meant for tools that I needed to bring in, and it was just something that came. And what was so great about it, Arthur, is that it was so accurate. I mean, it really blew my mind.
It showed truth.
It showed truth, and I was someone who never, ever in a million years thought my hormones had anything to do with what made me tick. And the reason why I didn't is because...
You didn't have no training.
Well, I didn't have the training, but mainly the kind of training that I had was so negative. I mean, not necessarily from my mother, but my mother also. But from society. Society is so cruel to women about their cycles. It's such a, we get such derogatory terms thrown at us. We're seen as a threat. We're criticized for everything, and we can't even get a woman president in because she may push the button during the wrong week, or something crazy like that. And all of it is
that would be good. That would be good.
Yeah, maybe it'd be good, but the
Hillary, are you gonna press that button?
Yeah, but the negativity around it is not okay, and it doesn't serve any of us. So, really thinking that my hormones affected me so much is not a place that I allowed to come into me. But here I saw a positive system. I saw what womb wisdom was. So I was presented with this template.
Womb wisdom.
Yeah,
like that.
And womb wisdom is something that all of us have, and I'll go through these 4 phases, and you'll understand what they are, what that is exactly. But keeping in mind that every human on the planet, every male, every female, is baptized into this world through the female womb. And in that process, since everyone is gestating in this amniotic fluid inside this womb, the place of transformation and growth and unconditional love and bonding, and the bonding being crucial, this connection with the mother agreeing to bond and care and go forward with this pregnancy. Definitely her decision whether she can bond, whether she can do this. It's so crucial for a healthy society, and it's so this imprint of this womb wisdom gets put into all of us, men and women both. And it really is shown to us. It's sacred geometry that lines up well with every universal rhythm in the universe. And when we all understand this womb wisdom, everything aligns for us, men and women both.
Right.
Yeah.
So I liked how you put this together. Now, what inspired you to write the book?
Well, so what inspired me to write the book is that I practiced this system again for 7 years. I kept resisting sharing the information because I just didn't want to. I didn't want the female cycle to be my thing, no matter what. Even though my sister was so great, but I was still programmed that I didn't want to take on the thing that was one of the most negative things on the planet, one of the most controversial. Although I started realizing that it was perfect for me because I'm such a women's advocate, I realized that this was what really needed to happen. This was the missing piece of our empowerment, because we have finally made it into CEO positions. We have finally made it into the universities. We finally made it as doctors and surgeons and all that stuff, but we have not gained control over the thing that makes us female, and that's our wombs. And it's not that we allow society to be in control of it. It's just that we're so vulnerable in that area, and it's easy to knock us down with it. So I realized that this was the work I had to do, but I was still a little hesitant, and it wasn't until I was actually at a class reunion in 2005, and a male friend of mine said something really derogatory about his wife's PMS. And I just said, and this is a friend of mine. Yeah, this is a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. I hadn't seen him in 30 years, but still,
You're just the way I loved you.
Yeah, totally. I said, I told you not to marry her 30 years ago, but you did anyway. But that's not the point. The point is, I said, I'm going to email you. I'm going to describe my 4 phases for you. I'm going to map this out for you. And this is a brilliant guy. He was our class president, the whole thing, super. He's a scientist, everything, and he understands the body very well. But this was, he's kind of cynical and whatever. And so I said, I'm gonna send you an email. So I sent him an email mapping out the 4 phases, the 4 seasons in 4 weeks, knowing that he would write me back and say, Suzanne, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So I was prepared for that. But he didn't do that. He wrote back and he said, "Oh my gosh, is this what you're writing about?" And I said, "Well, no. I had a business series I was writing." And he said, "Well, stick that on the back burner. You have to write about this because
really?
I get this for the first time ever, and it makes so much sense. Why haven't we been teaching it like this? And I understand my wife now. I understand my 20-year-old daughter, and you have to write about it." So I realized he was right. If he got it, and I had been talking to some other women about it, they got it, and so that's when I started writing. I really thought it would take me about 2 months to write. Yeah. I thought it'd be really fast to write because I wrote out this email in 20 minutes or something.
Right.
Right. Yeah, right. But it took another 7 years. So
7 years to put the book together?
Yeah, because every time I thought I was finishing up, a whole new bit of information would
that other piece of the download came up.
Oh, lots, more.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just took that as a sign to keep going. And at some point I finally just said, okay, wrap this up, and whatever else comes will happen in workshops or, that kind of thing. And that has happened. But I was able to finish the book, and let me just show real quick, because what's significant about this book is, first of all, I decided I had to make it beautiful, because if I were writing a book, if I were going to have a book in my possession, I needed it to be beautiful. So it has almost 60 images in it. It's all color. But it's also color-coded on the edges of these pages so that women can just turn to these sections and jump right into where they're at and what they need to do. I also have at the end of these chapters what I call a man guide.
A man guide,
because when I surveyed...
You got that guide? Yeah. There's every other piece. You're missing link there.
That's right. Well, the thing is that when I started asking women, when I started surveying women, they said that the number one thing that bothered them about their cycle is that they didn't feel well on a consistent basis. The number two thing was that their guy didn't understand. And that pressure in partnership for heterosexual women. Now, gay women have it a little easier in that way. They may have some physical challenges with their cycle, but they don't have, it's not really, I don't hear this from gay women, that they have a challenge with their partners, because their partners understand it, because their partners go through it too, or have gone through it. It doesn't really matter if you're cycling or not cycling. But they have partners who understand. They have partners who understand the vulnerability of the whole thing. And they also have partners who, can kind of innately, they just sort of innately can dance with each other a bit. But also, gay women don't have to worry about birth control. Mm-hmm. They can have sex during their most fertile time and their most, their most sensuous times and all that, and not have to worry about it. I mean, in many ways, they have it made that way. Mm-hmm. Heterosexual women have a real challenge, because they're wanting to have, the times that their body wants to have sex the most is the time that they're most fertile, and if you're trying to prevent pregnancy, then you're looking at what kind of contraception are we using. And that's a whole big thing that, we don't have a really perfect contraception, that's ideal for it all. So, but then again, they have this partner who doesn't understand, and they do have this rhythmic sex drive. And so they haven't learned about the rhythmic sex drive, and certainly the guy hasn't learned about the rhythmic sex drive. And when they both learn that, when they both understand it, everything improves. Everything improves.
Everything improves.
Yeah.
I had on my 100th show, I had a lady come in, and she was channeling the Dharma from the Telos. And one of the audience people asked the Dharma what was the best way for humans to have sex. And I was horrified. That's not the question. I'm like, sure, I wanted to hear. But it was such an answer that really lit me up. And Dharma says, no, humans use their lower chakras. What they need to do before they even touch each other is open up all their chakras to each other and flow with that. And then the rest of it will be magical. Mm-hmm. And he even said the angels will laugh with you.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And what I would add to that is that each phase, you want to tap into the energy of that. Know what the energy of that phase is before you open those chakras, mm-hmm. so that you're meeting each other on that foundation.
That's good to know. That's good.
So should we go through the 4 phases, and I can explain that?
Sure.
Okay. So really what we're looking at is that every cycle in the universe has something that looks like a resting phase, a building phase, an expression phase, and a deconstructing phase, and back to rest, right? And we all have these 4 phases in a 24-hour circadian rhythm, men and women both. We sleep at night, that's a resting phase. We get up in the morning and we're building our energy, and we're going for it, and everything's building. At some point we hit our stride, and that's our expression phase. We're on this roll, we're going, and at some point we get tired and we wind down. That's our deconstructing phase, or our processing phase, or problem solving phase, and then it's back to rest. And in a 24-hour circadian rhythm, we may do that 2 or 3 times, because we may take a nap in the afternoon, and so then we get back up, we start all over again, until we're back to rest. So we all do it, and we're all rhythmic thinkers, because we don't make the same decisions in the morning that we necessarily make in the afternoon or the evening. We don't make the same decisions when we're tired as we make when we're really energized and centered. And you know how great that feels to make decisions when you just feel good, when everything's aligned.
When you do it.
And you do it, and when and you know what it feels like to make a decision when you're tired or you're not feeling well, that kind of thing. So men and women both. This is not just for women. Men and women both work this way. The 4 seasons, we have an idea of what those seasons are like, depending on where we live. But for the most part, we have a general view of what fall looks like, or what winter looks like, or what spring is like, and what summer is like. And we do make different decisions throughout those seasons, depending on the weather. For instance, if we make different decisions based on our comfort. We're always, as rhythmic beings, as humans, we're rhythmic beings, we are always adjusting for our comfort. So if we look outside and it's winter, we have an idea that, okay, most of the clothes that we have around we've got the coat, we've got long sleeve shirts, and all this kind of stuff. And we pop our heads outside and we figure out, okay, it's extra cold today. So how do we compensate? The decision we make.
Contemplate. Thermal underwear.
That's right. So we are compensating for the day. We're making a rhythmic decision to put on more layers for our comfort. We don't make the decision to wear shorts and t-shirts because we don't want to be cold. We want to be comfortable. We're always adjusting for our comfort, even financially and different things. We're always sort of, we've got this natural level within our systems that want to be balanced and comfortable. So every day we're making those decisions. We just want to be comfortable, because then we know we're in alignment. We know that when temperature-wise or comfort-wise that we're wearing the right thing, or whatever, then we're going to feel better throughout the day. So keeping these the rhythmic decisions and keeping the comfort level in mind, and keeping these 4 phases of rest, build, expression, and deconstruction, and back to rest in mind, women have those same 4 phases in a month's time, because we have this cycle. It's not something that men have. Men have what the researchers that I've spoken with, that I need to get back to, but a couple of years ago when they were researching, they were discovering that men have these same 4 phases through a year's time. So what a woman would have in a week, a man would have in 3-month chunks.
Really?
So in a 90-day phase. And so you would follow really the sun seasons. You would follow the seasons, not necessarily align with the seasons, but you'd have your own 4 seasons in a year.
Okay.
Whereas I say the women have 4 seasons in a month. So we have each week.
You really got a lot of burning to do.
It's a fast frequency, because we've got this construction zone that repeats itself for over 40 years of our lives.
Wow.
Because we are the ones that we're the human source of creation. This is where it happens. And it's a radical, radical thing that needs to be honored rather than criticized. And what happens is that no matter what women are doing throughout the day, something, everything is shifting and moving in this regard. For women after menopause, postmenopause, or after hysterectomy, I say that they're more powerful than ever, because they're no longer able to produce children, but they're producing projects. We're creative forces. This is a creation cycle. So it doesn't matter whether it's about children or not. Not all women can have children.
It's a new job.
But we are still designed to create circles, to lead nations, to really see the well-rounded view of things. So if we take these 4 weeks and we're going to use the cycle, the cycling woman who bleeds, you know, and that kind of thing as the model. We're going to take that as the blueprint because that's the real manifestation of this real wisdom. Then we'd be looking at the first week, week 1,